Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined this Thursday morning by Derek Brown and Andrew Erickson. Fellas, we're here to talk some must-sits today as we head into week 3. Hard to believe it's already week 3 of the NFL season. It always goes so fast. Everybody says it, and I agree with that. I want to ask you guys, though, before we get into the must-sits, and maybe this might tie in quite nicely, depending on how you guys feel about these running backs, but I want to react quickly to this Cam Akers trade to the Minnesota Vikings. Erickson, I'll start with you. What does this do for Alexander Madison's value rest of season?
Red alert. It was already on red alert after he sucked for 2 weeks against some really tough matchups. We told you not to draft him. We were very gun-ho. Me and DBro didn't agree on everything this season, but we felt like Alexander Madison was not a great investment in those middle rounds. So I'm concerned. He has to deliver against some of these softer matchups coming up, or he's going to lose out on touches to Cam Akers. You can say what you want about, Cam Akers, he's not good, blah, 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 but he's shown that he can handle volume in the NFL against teams not named the Detroit Lions, which at this point, that's all Alexander Madison has done is show out in games versus the Lions defense. So for me, Kevin O'Connell comes from the Rams organization. It's no coincidence that they picked Cam Akers as a running back to add to their stable after 2 disappointing weeks from Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler. So we saw last year, Cam Akers was an RB1 over the last 6 weeks of the NFL season. He led the NFL in rushing yards. Trust the process,
I know where Erickson's going with this.
Trust the process. Okay, he gets benched week 1, goes on the trade block in the doghouse, disappears, and then finishes out the season as a top running back. So for me, I want Cam Akers on my team. If you can scoop him up from somebody else, keep him stashed, because I think it's just a matter of time before he takes the job from Alexander Madison, who has been just unimpressive, in my opinion, to start the year.
Nobody connects players and coaches who were together in previous organizations more than Erickson does, and we always appreciate it. DBro, what was your reaction to the trade?
I mean, I just love the process that Erickson's running through. So all I heard Erickson say in that entire spiel was Cam Akers stretch run winner. And I mean, I'm here for it, man. I mean, to be real about this, I agree with everything Erickson said. Madison is not an impressive back. And the way that we characterized this, and we talked about this, and we framed it in the offseason was, if the first thing that you bring up about said running back is not the talent, but the opportunity, this is what a dead zone back is made out of. That's all everybody kept talking about. Great offense, all this. Blah, 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 blah. Nobody ever said, hey, look at the talent of this player, and that's why we should be excited. But you have Cam Akers. There are stretches. Now, have we seen all of this for an entire NFL season? No. Have we seen stretches of dominance from him, of RB1 production that give us hope that if he could stay healthy, if Sean McVay is not going to send him into the bench again, can he do that? And so now that a team actually traded for him, yeah, it's damning of Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler. Because if you didn't have faith in Alexander Madison, then you would think Ty Chandler should take over. If you don't have faith in either one of those guys, then you trade for somebody else. So, yes, I'm down on both of those guys. And if you can get Cam Akers off the waiver wire for cheap and as a throw-in and a deal, go ahead. Have at it.
Let's get into our must-sit running backs here to kick off the show. Erickson, we'll start with you. Give me your 3 running backs that you are sitting this week.
Yep, so I'm going to start with Jerome Ford, everyone's favorite waiver wire pickup of the week, but it's just going to be the Josh Kelly 2.0 show here again. He's playing the Titans. They are the no run-on defense, number 2 in fewest fantasy points allowed running back so far this season, after last year where they were basically a defense that their defensive line is just so good. Teams can't run the ball on them. Teams just basically are we give up running the football, and we're going to have to throw it. There is no Jack Conklin for the Cleveland Browns. I know Jerome Ford ripped off a big run on Monday Night Football, but if he doesn't rip off a big run here against the Titans, I don't think he's going to do a lot. So I know you added him this week, but you got to practice discipline here. If you added Josh Kelly last week and started him, you were disappointed. And I think it's going to be the exact same thing if you added Jerome Ford and you start him this week. Again, if you're desperate, he's a floor play at best. So Jerome Ford's a sit for me. The next guy is Khalil Herbert for the Chicago Bears. Tough place to play going up to Kansas City for the Bears, who are just kind of in a dysfunctional situation, I would say, with their offense. Just a lot of question marks about what's going on. And we just keep hearing whispers about Roschon Johnson getting more and more involved in the offense. Look, I'll believe it when I finally see it because it has not happened in either of the games. Khalil Herbert has still been the clear RB1, but in a game where you could see them easily playing from behind, they are 12.5-point dogs. I could definitely see Roschon Johnson being more involved just because they're in pass game script, and he's the guy that they prefer a little bit more in the passing game versus Khalil Herbert, who I think it would be wise for them to get Herbert the ball more to like establish some type of running game to help their quarterback. But I digress. So just Khalil Herbert, he's not getting enough volume right now to rely on him, even though I do think he's a talented guy. And then the last guy is Dameon Pierce. Look, I don't think that Pierce is a bad running back like I do with Alexander Madison, but he just has no help. The Texans offensive line is so hurt. Like he doesn't stand a chance right now. He ranks dead last among all running backs in total rushing EPA because he's basically hit behind the line of scrimmage on every single play. And the snaps aren't there to help his production. Like if he was getting a 75%, 80% snap load, okay, we could see him being a volume play. But I mean, he's had 45% snap share back-to-back weeks. Devin Singletary is playing a lot more than I think people thought that he would, especially with the Texans always facing these negative game scripts. So for me, Dameon Pierce is just another guy I'm trying to get away from. Like Pierce is someone that I like how he has strong job security in my opinion. So I think that he is kind of like an interesting buy low for the future when the Texans offensive line gets healthy, when the schedule eases up. But for right now and the upcoming schedule is just still absolutely brutal for Dameon Pierce. So I think you got to sit him on the bench.
Yeah, Pierce is one of the running backs in the NFL. Not one of the players, but one of the running backs in the NFL that I most wish was on a different team because I just want to see him behind an actual good offensive line. I find him so much fun to watch when he actually has room to do anything. DBro, you and Erickson aren't too far apart in your Week 3 rankings on Jerome Ford. You're about 4 spots higher, but I still want to get your opinion just because he was the hot waiver wire guy of the week. So what's kind of your approach to Jerome Ford, not only going up against a really tough defense, but also given the Kareem Hunt signing?
I was sick to say, we haven't even talked about the elephant in the room here with Kareem Hunt now getting signed. Everybody that's blowing their fab on Jerome Ford was like, and myself included, I talked about this with Joey P earlier in the week, and I was like, there's no way they're going to bring back Kareem Hunt. Like, come on. Now, I'm not telling you that he walks in there and obviously like he's going to 40% snap share in this game, but in a bad matchup, the team wants to obviously, they brought back Kareem Hunt. So if Jerome Ford has a bad game, all that does is kind of eke the door open for Kareem Hunt to get more work next week or the week after that. Jerome Ford doesn't come out here and just like gangbusters and blow the roof off this week. And I don't think he is. I'm totally with Erickson on this. You don't run on the Tennessee Titans. So he's a low-end RB2 just based off of volume. And you're really hoping that he gets into the end zone because if he doesn't, you're probably really sad you played him.
I want to ask you guys, we did a poll on Spotify, which everybody should go vote in, and we're probably going to try and do more of those throughout the season. But we did a poll asking Kareem Hunt is a what for the rest of season. So not Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt alone is a what for the rest of season, RB1, RB2, RB3, RB4, or RB5 or worse. So before I tell you the results, I want you guys to tell me what you guys think as well. So Erickson, RB1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or worse.
I would put him in the RB3 category.
How about you, DBro?
Can I go option E or F, an employed running back? No, to be honest, I think RB3 is about right. He's going to get work on the passing downs. How much is to be, is left up for debate. But I think RB3 is about right.
So the folks agreed with you. RB3 was the result that got the highest number of votes. 45% of the votes actually went to RB3, 27% to RB2. RB4 had 14%. RB1 had 7%. Those people are extremely optimistic.
I was going to say, how many people were crazy and clicked RB1 just to sit here and watch the world burn?
They are more optimistic than me.
Well, but when you look at Jerome Ford, we've never seen him handle an NFL workload. Like, that's a big concern. Like, again, we talk about these running backs that are just put into these positions where, like, all right, he's going to be the guy. Okay, how is Jerome Ford going to look when he has 200 carries on him? Like, is he going to last the longevity of the season? You know who we've seen do that? Kareem Hunt. You know who hasn't had a lot of touches over the last couple of years? Kareem Hunt. Like, there's a world where Ford gets banged up again because he was hurt during the preseason, that Hunt takes over this backfield fully. So I think that Kareem does have a lot of like long-term upside once he gets going.
I also just don't trust this offense though. Like Nick Chubb carried this offense so much that without him there, like Deshaun has looked so bad. I'm not sure they're the list of running backs. I think I would be confident in being an RB1, even if they had the bulk of the workload in this offense. Is not that long. Although, running back as a position is pretty ugly still,
and
too.
And that goes back to the pass catching with Hunt. Like, he's done that in the NFL level at a very high level. So if this team can't run the football, which it's not going to be as good running the football because they don't have Jack Conklin and no one is Nick Chubb, then Kareem Hunt, if they just prefer him on third downs, and Jerome Ford is the early down grinder on a team that struggles to run the football, like, what are you winning with that? Especially this week against the Titans, it's just not a good spot.
You won the fat bid. That's about it.
Yeah, that's what you won. Let's go to the Who Should I Start tool. This is free to use at fantasypros.com/start. It's just a player comparison tool where we take all the different rankings from the experts and we tell you what percentage of them are picking one guy versus the other. All of these are going to be half PPR rankings, as a setting I used here. But I was going to give you guys a quick couple one-on-ones. Erickson, Jerome Ford, or Breece Hall? Who are you starting this week?
Breece Hall.
Most of the votes going to Ford for that one. Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson? And obviously, Herbert's got more work going into this week, but like you mentioned, they'll be playing a lot from behind. So Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just buy into the game script. It's like if the game script goes like it probably should, it's probably just going to be more of Roschon Johnson. So yeah, I mean, it's 12.5 points. The Bears are going to be behind at some point during this game. So as much as I love Khalil Herbert, like the game script just screams more of a Roschon game if you just have to pick one Bears running back, unfortunately.
Herbert is still getting most of the vote there from the experts. And then lastly, Dameon Pierce or Gus Edwards, now that Justice Hill is going to be out this week likely.
Probably going to be going with the Gus Bus. I mean, Gus Bus was fine last week. I had to start him in a league because I had no other options. And it's like, once you start a guy and he does good, you're not sure about it, it's like, I'm just going to leave him in there. Feel good. Yeah. So I'm going to keep rolling with the Gus Bus, especially with the Hill injury popping up too.
He's also just better than Justice Hill. Like, I don't know why he wasn't getting more of the carries anyway. But let's go to DBro. Give me your 3 must-sit running backs.
First guy I got to bring up here is Tyler Allgeier, and this is what we've been waiting on. Atlanta is going to face a really good run defense, and yes, I said it. The Detroit Lions are a very, very good run defense. Over the entire 2023 season, 2 games, they have allowed 2.97 yards per carry to running backs. Let that soak in for a second. So Atlanta is not going to be able to run the ball against this defense. They have also allowed the 6th lowest yards after contact per attempt. So Tyler Allgeier, any thoughts of you playing him in the flex? Don't do that. You're going to be very, very disappointed with that. The next guy to bring up here is Rachaad White. And whether we want to talk about his inability to break tackles, he's outside the top 30 running backs in missed tackles forced per attempt and yards after contact per attempt, or the fact that the Eagles are a brick wall. They have not allowed an explosive run the entire year. They have the 11th best stuff rate. All of this screams, do not play Rachaad White. And the last guy I got to bring up here is, again, we're talking about waiver wire pickups. The guy that was, the name on the tip of everybody's tongue a few weeks ago was Zack Moss. I know Zack Moss had a really good game, but going up against the Baltimore Ravens run defense, again, we're talking about really good run defenses, 11th lowest missed tackles allowed rate, and the 12th lowest yards per carry to zone runs. Why does this matter? Zack Moss last week, 77% of his runs were on zone concepts. So you will not catch me playing any of these 3 running backs.
Erickson, I want to ask you, you actually are much higher on 2 of these guys in DBro. Allgeier, you're 9 spots higher. You have him as an RB2. And then Rachaad White, you have him as a higher end RB2. You're 11 spots higher than DBro is. So of those 2 guys, who do you kind of have the most confidence in being higher on than not just DBro, but the rest of the Fantasy Pro staff?
Between Allgeier and Rachaad White. Rachaad White is tricky because it's like last week, was it just like the Bears, or did he actually look better? Like it's a combination of both. So I am concerned about Rachaad White, but he has a great workload. Like he has 19 plus touches in back-to-back games. And the Buccaneers can at least move the football against the Eagles defense is not that great in their secondary. So I'm not concerned that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are just going to get stuffed and not be able to move the football. They're going to move the football through the air, especially after the catch, because the middle of their defense is horrible. So there's touchdown upside with Rachaad White. I mean, he owns that backfield, and I think they're going to score points. So that's kind of where I'm at with Rachaad White. Even if he's not efficient, we've seen guys, if they have a high snap share, they can overcome. How do you overcome inefficiency? Is with volume. And Rachaad White, 2 weeks in, has gotten a ton of volume in the Bucs backfield. So, and then with Allgeier,
I was going to ask you about that, Erickson. Like last week, not to cut you off, man, but like with Chase Edmonds, like he was factoring in a lot in the first quarter before he got hurt. Any worries about Sean Tucker eating into the workload? Because that's also playing into where I'm ranking him. Like I'm worried that if that game versus the Bears didn't give him more rope, we could see more Sean Tucker than people realize this week. But I mean, are you with me on that? Or are you just like, nah, this is White's backfield?
I mean, White had played this, or Tucker played the same Bears, horrible defense, and he had 7 carries for 8 yards. Like, and Rachaad White delivered.
Okay.
Like, Rachaad White, I tweeted out before the game, was like, do or die, man. Like, you have to deliver in this matchup. And he did. So I'm going to keep rolling with White because he delivered in a good matchup. So, again, I wouldn't say that he's a smash this week, but there are not a lot of volume RB2s that you can really rely on, so that's kind of why I have him ranked there. And then with Allgeier, I still think Allgeier has a ton of touchdown equity. I know that we saw Bijan Robinson get more red zone work, but they've still used Tyler Allgeier plenty in the red zone, and the Lions don't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Like, he's a big guy when it comes to safety play, in the box, stopping the run. So I like that game from a shootout perspective. Ford Field is the Coors Field of the NFL. Like, if you look at the games, the totals for the Lions that they've played at home, it's like over 54 points on average. Like, there are so many points scored in those games, and I want pieces of games with high scores, and I think Allgeier kind of fits in that category, even if he's not a monster touch producer with Bijan getting more of the work. I mean, they've used Allgeier in the red zone all the time, so that's kind of why I have those guys, especially in half PPR rankings where you score a touchdown, and it's really hard to not finish as like a top 36 running back.
DBro, let's do some who should I starts here. Tyler Allgeier or AJ Dillon this week?
Ew. Are we assuming that Aaron Jones is out in that? If that's the case, which I know he hasn't practiced. Now, again, like as of the time we're recording this, he has not practiced. So, oh, geez, it's so nasty. I'll take AJ Dillon.
He's not going to play.
I don't think he's going to play either. I'll take AJ Dillon, although it is.
When you open the week as a DNP, it's usually like you're not going to play.
Yeah. All right, DBro, Rachaad White or James Conner?
I will take James Conner, although it is gross. I will take James Conner. Both of these guys are staring down horrible defenses that they have to go against. Like I was talking about with Rachaad White, I do have a little bit of worries of him losing some work. There is nobody in that backfield that's going to take work away from James Conner. Nobody.
Yeah. And then last one here. This is a really close one, actually. Zack Moss or Jerome Ford?
I'll go Jerome Ford. I know the matchup is terrible. I think the matchup is terrible for Zack Moss. But we don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson. So if it's the Minshew Mania under center, maybe they don't move the ball as well. I'll take Ford.
Yeah, that one's basically a coin flip in the Who Should I Start tool, although a slight lean to Zack Moss. Let's go to the must-sit wide receivers. Erickson, give me your 3 guys here.
All right, I'm going to go with going back to the Bears. We got a Bears theme going on. So DJ Moore, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Look, I was on board of starting DJ Moore last week. That hit. He had over 100 receiving yards. But with these boomer bust wide receivers, you got to play the matchups, and I don't like the matchup at Kansas City. Again, we talked about the up and down passing game with the Chicago Bears. How much is DJ Moore going to be involved? And playing in Kansas City is just a tough place to play. Kansas City basically neutralized a lot of the Jaguars wide receivers last week. I know Calvin Ridley left a lot of production on the table, could have had a better game, but the fact that a lot of Jaguars were busts last week, that doesn't necessarily spell a lot of confidence that, oh, well, DJ Moore will get it done easy. Like, it's a shootout. It's like probably not the case. So I would try to get away from DJ Moore on the road here in Kansas City, which is always a tough place to play. Next up, Garrett Wilson against the New England Patriots. Look, Garrett Wilson has been running hot on some of these touchdown catches. I mean, basically, he willed his way into the end zone on that 60-plus yard touchdown that was one of his 2 catches that he had from Zach Wilson. He doesn't catch that, he's going to bust. So Bill Belichick's smart enough to realize that if Garrett Wilson doesn't score, like, he's probably going to stop this Jets offense. So Garrett Wilson, I think they're going to try to put the clamps on him, and I just don't think he's going to have a great game. Even though he's had good games against the Patriots in the past, it's been because of the same thing. It's like he's ripped off one big touchdown run, and as as a fan of Garrett Wilson, I always like, yeah, here we go, Garrett Wilson. I'm like, this is not a sustainable method of success. So,
yeah, but shout out to your boy Christian Gonzalez too, Erickson.
Christian Gonzalez. Go Ducks. And then my last guy here is going to be DeAndre Hopkins. So Hopkins has been kind of underwhelming through 2 weeks. Week 1, he had a lot of targets. Last week, not as much. I know he was dealing with an injury entering the week. He didn't practice all week. But this is like the story with DeAndre Hopkins. When Mike Vrabel hates guys that don't practice. And it just like blows my mind that they would sign DeAndre Hopkins, who like famously doesn't ever practice. But they did, and now he's on the team. But he is basically he needs so much volume to get anywhere because he has no juice after the catch. He's averaging 1 yard after the catch per reception this year. The Browns defense is legit. Like every single category, just up and down, pass defense, run defense. They back-to-back weeks, they've just totally shut down opposing offenses between the Bengals and the Steelers. So I'm not expecting a big week for the Tennessee Titans offense, either through the run or the pass. So DeAndre Hopkins, for me, like, what are you missing on him? Like, I think that you'd rather ride in the flames of some of these waiver wire players that are playing well than start DeAndre Hopkins, even if you drafted him as your wide receiver 2. You drafted him as your wide receiver 2 until you could find something better. And I think that you probably can look on your roster and you could probably find more upside bets than a DeAndre Hopkins, who is he has to get 13 targets to give you a wide receiver 2 finish. Like, that's what you're hoping for. And I just don't see that, especially against the Browns defense that's been elite through 2 weeks.
I'm with you on all three of these guys. Man, I just look at Garrett Wilson. I mean, if he, the worst quarterback in the NFL, if he was with the love child of Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett, I would be 20 spots higher on Garrett Wilson. It's just that it's Zack Wilson of all the quarterbacks. It's not going to be a fun
Zack
season.
Wilson isn't that love child?
He might be.
I was like, that's a pretty accurate description. There weren't.
I kind of stumbled into that one on accident. Let's go to some who should I starts here, Erickson. DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin this week?
I'm probably just going to start Terry McLaurin because I think that, I don't really like either guy, but McLaurin's been more consistent than DJ Moore, who's more boom or bust.
Yeah, this is the must-sit section, so the intention here is that we're not really going to like either guy in most of these. Garrett Wilson or Amari Cooper?
Oh, jeez.
Amari Cooper for me. I think that one's pretty...
Tell me this isn't close. That shouldn't be close.
This one's pretty easy for me. I know Deshaun Watson has looked horrible, but the Titans are a team that just... he's gonna drop back to throw 40 times. So
it's not close, but it's not a blowout. Cooper gets 2/3 of the vote. Wilson gets 1/3.
He should be like 90%, I think.
It's Cooper.
And then the last one, DeAndre Hopkins or Drake London.
I will take Drake London and just hope that the game shoots out and he just happens to be the guy that gets the targets. like that's kind of the bet here. I think London. Again, talking about ceiling, I think he has way more upside in this matchup. I think Hopkins is probably like, okay, you want to lock in 4 for 40, like 5 for 50, like Hopkins is your guy. But if you want a ceiling play, it would be Drake London, in my opinion, because if he does get targets in a game that could shoot out, Titans Browns pound the under. There's no way this game is going to go over 40
Atlanta's not going to be able to run the ball. Like they're going to have to throw.
So yeah, this Titans Browns game is just try not to play really anyone. It's going to be low scoring.
DBro, give me your must-sit wide receivers.
Which version of Christian Kirk do we get this week? And I'm assuming in saying this, Zay Jones plays. Now, I know that's kind of up in the air right now, but which version of Christian Kirk do we get? Do we get the guy from week 1 who had a 60% route per dropback rate and a 6% target share? Or the guy in week 2 who had a 77% route per dropback and got a 33% target share? I don't know. If Zay Jones plays, I don't know which Jekyll or Hyde we get this week. I'm sitting Christian Kirk. I like the Jaguars' passing attack, but give me Calvin Ridley or give me nobody. The next guy up here, Marquise Brown, and this is really easy. They're playing Dallas. Those cornerbacks, I don't want any part of. Trevion Diggs, just a little fun factoid for people out there. The passer rating allowed by Trevion Diggs in coverage right now is 1. Not 115, it's 1. Just 1. That's it. That's all he's giving up. So I can't play Marquise Brown. Josh Dobbs might be under pressure so much, he's barely even getting passes off in this game. So can't play the wide receivers that are catching passes from Josh Dobbs. Last guy I got to bring up here, and he was in one of the early discussions, is Terry McLaurin. The numbers for Terry have not been good. 15% target share. He is outside the top 40 wide receivers in receiving grade and yards per route run. You tell me he's going to run 84% of his routes against Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford, who actually Benford is outplaying White right now with a 52 passer rating allowed? I don't want any part of that. I'm sitting F1. No way.
Let's get to the who should I starts here for you, DBro. Christian Kirk or Michael Thomas?
Oh, Michael Thomas. Give me that up. Easy.
Thomas does get the slight lean in the tool. Marquise Brown or Elijah Moore?
Ugh, that's a case of double yuck. I'll take Elijah Moore because it's a pass funnel defense, and I got to be able to run them all.
Yeah, Moore getting, again, slightly more of the vote there. And then lastly, I was surprised by the outcome of this. Terry McLaurin or Jordan Addison?
Ooh. I'm going to take Jordan Addison in a shootout.
I agree. Addison's only getting 14%, according to the experts. So that's kind of the first one in today's show that I think is off. And you could probably take advantage of that if you have both guys on your team. You should start Addison, not McLaurin.
Absolutely.
We went long on running backs and receivers. So let's go to the must-sit quarterback, tight end, and defenses. We'll run through these a little quicker. Erickson, give me your QB, tight end, and defense special teams.
Right. I got a Packers special for you guys. I'm sitting their quarterback and tight end because they're playing the Saints. So Jordan Love has thrown 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, despite the fact that he ranks 28th in passing attempts and 23rd in passing yards. This is just regression. Like, he just can't run hotter than the sun for this long. The Saints, I think, have an underrated secondary. So for me, I think Jordan Love is just kind of going to come back down to earth. He's just not passing the ball enough. Like, if he was throwing for 300 yards every week and 3 touchdowns, like, okay, like, I can buy more into this. But because it's just on such a small sample size that he's been super efficient, I just think that his passing touchdown rate is going to dip and regress a little bit, especially with this game. Both teams are, at least Green Bay, is still trying to protect Jordan Love. They're not like a fast-paced offense. Like, he's executing the offense really well, but it's not necessarily conducive, I think, for a lot of fantasy scoring in the future, especially in this matchup. And then with Luke Musgrave, the Saints, there's no fly zone with tight ends. Like, DBro has brought it up on numerous occasions, especially last year. It's like last year they're number 1 against tight ends so far. This year, number 1 against tight ends. So just like, if there's a reason to not play tight end, like, it's if they play the Saints. So just don't play them. So Luke Musgrave is also a sit for me this week at tight end. And then at DST, it's going to be the Washington Commanders. I know a lot of people picked them up. They were playing Denver and Arizona the first 2 weeks. This week they're playing Buffalo. Don't want any piece of that. I know Josh Allen can be a wild man at times. You might think, oh, like, maybe we can get some turnovers. I think there are much better options on the waiver wire that you can go to as opposed to playing in the nation's capital.
Quickly, Erickson, Jordan Love or Matthew Stafford this week?
I would go Stafford right now. They're just they're running so many plays, and unlike Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford is due for positive touchdown regression because he's not thrown like any touchdowns, despite the fact that the Rams are running more plays than any offense in the NFL, and he's just throwing for 300 yards every single week. So I would buy the dip on Stafford. The opposite of what I'm doing with Jordan Love.
DBro, give me your quarterback, tight end, and defense special teams.
Well, I'm going to kick this off. I'm sitting Chef Geno Smith. I know he had a great bounce back game in week 2, but I'm sitting him here. Carolina Panthers have been extremely tough against quarterbacks. 5th fewest fantasy points per game allowed, 12th lowest CPOE on deep throws, and that's what Geno wants to do. So now, Chef Geno, head back to the kitchen. You ain't playing for me this week. Next guy I got to talk about, Chig Okonkwo. The results have been very disappointing with Chig. 10% target share. He is outside the top 25 tight ends in target share and first read target share. He has a 0.76, not even 1, people, yards per route run. If you don't know the metric, just know that that's bad. Cleveland Browns have been extremely good against tight ends of the last 2 seasons, so count me out on Chig. And the last defense I got to bring here, and this is really just name cachet. People look at a good team and they say, man, you know what? They signed J.C. Jackson. They got Khalil Mack. Chargers got to be a good defense, right? No. That game is going to shoot out, and it's going to be because of the Chargers defense is terrible. They are allowing the highest yards per attempt, the 3rd highest passer rating, and the 8th highest adjusted completion rate. So bombs away for Van Kirk Cousins and sit the Chargers defense. Don't want any part of it.
No explanation. Just give me a pick. Zach Ertz or Chig Okonkwo?
Ertz, based off of volume.
All right, quick recap here. Must-sit running backs: Jerome Ford, Khalil Herbert, Dameon Pierce, Tyler Allgeier, Rachaad White, Zack Moss. Wide receivers: DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Marquise Brown, Terry McLaurin. Quarterbacks: Jordan Love and Geno Smith. Tight ends: Luke Musgrave and Chig Okonkwo. And defenses: Washington and the Los Angeles Chargers. We will get out of here for Erickson and DBro. I'm Ryan Wormeli. We'll see you guys again next time.